Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the BGF podcast. I'm your host, Gianluca, alongside of
Brandon.
And today, we got our Dynasty trade now assets. People we don't want, people you need to get rid of. And, let's kick things off, Brandon. What do you want to talk about?
So, my first sell high, we're going to have 8 guys, so 4 each. And my first guy is going to be Jaylen Waddle. He's currently ranked pretty high up in the wide receiver rankings. He's ranked ahead of guys like Devontae Smith, which I wouldn't take Devontae Smith over him. Those other guys too here. He's ranked ahead of guys like DJ Moore, Nico Collins, Michael Pittman. These are all guys I like more than Jaylen Waddle. Just him being ranked this high, I don't really get. He's going to be behind Tyreek Hill for the near future, at least the next 2-3 years.
Yeah. Which
is always going to cap his upside. And really, his year 2 is very good, which I understood this price if it was last year because it was coming off a 1,300-yard year.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, I know he only played 14 games, but still 1,014 yards is year 1, 1,015, where he had a shit ton of receptions, like 104 receptions. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the upside's kind of capped with Jaylen Waddle, and I'd rather bet on guys with a bigger upside like Nico Collins now that he's playing with CJ Stroud as his quarterback. And yeah, these are guys I'd prefer over him. So trades that you could make if you have Jaylen Waddle, if you can get Nico Collins in a pick, like I said, I would do that. Devontae Smith in a pick, that's another trade I would do. And if you do go look on Fantasy Calc, which is, like we said in the last video, a database where you could see what players are trading for. You can see Jaylen Waddle is currently trading for, let's see what it's looking like.
I feel like you can
like here, Jaylen Waddle and a second for Garrett Wilson. That's a deal I would 100% do.
For sure.
If I could tier up into a guy like Garrett Wilson, who's in that tier just below a guy like Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, that kind of tier is just below that. I would like to get into that tier. Jaylen Waddle for Brandon Ayuk, that's a deal I would do. Ayuk maybe leave San Francisco, and if he does leave San Francisco, I'd imagine his production goes even higher than it's currently at. And even if he does stay in San Francisco, I still like Ayuk better than Waddle right now, as he is probably the number 1 there. And yeah, so you get the point here. Like, if I can get the 105 and take a guy like Malik Neighbors, that's a guy I'd like to take a chance on over Jaylen Waddle. So, what do you got as your
my first trade, now instant trade, is going to be Mr. Stefon Diggs. Obviously, we know his value is not that high in fantasy right now. However, there are players ranked under him that I really, really like. More specifically, Josh Downs, Christian Kirk. I'd even take a chance on Calvin Ridley over Stefon Diggs at this point in his career. Obviously, we know what Stefon Diggs looked like once the new OC came in. He hadn't had a game over 85 receiving yards up until the very end. I think it was week 17 against Miami. He caught 87, but either way, his production dipped. He was averaging, I think, 40-something yards a game during that span since week 9 or week 10. It was ugly, and then in the postseason, obviously, we saw what he looked like against the Chiefs. Only had 21 receiving yards, dropped that big bomb at the end of the game to send it to overtime or maybe win, but he's a shell of his former self, and I think it's pretty safe to say to try to get rid of him. Even if you can get something like an early second, late first, I'd consider doing that. Even taking a chance on, I don't know, some running back like Damian Pierce, I might even consider.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. That's the way that Pierce ended off the year. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. But if you can get an older, aging running back, a guy like Nick Chubb that people are sort of fading right now, and if you can trade away Stefon Diggs, I see it's a trade here, Diggs for Chubb straight up. I would probably do that. I think you're going to get way more production out of Chubb, even after the injury. And then I see guys like Jonathan Mingo in 2 seconds. I don't hate that either. Take a chance on Mingo. You're getting 2 seconds. Why not? We know Stefon Diggs is going to just dip. He's also getting up there in age, doesn't want to play in Buffalo, whatever the case is. Who knows? But even if you can package Diggs with a second to get a middle of the pack first, I might do that.
Damn, you're really out on Stefon Diggs. You're giving him up.
I'm giving him up. I can't lie. I don't think it's going to be pretty next year. He might have a few spike weeks just because of the name. He's going to get the targets, but other than that, I don't think he's a value in Dynasty.
Anyway, moving on to my next guy. This is going to be a controversial one, but he's currently ranked as the wide receiver 3 right now, and that's going to be Jamar Chase. I don't really have a problem with the ranking. He'd probably be my wide receiver 4. I'd probably boost Amon-Ra St. Brown over him, but to be honest, that's not really what my issue is. I just feel like he's kind of propped up as like in the same tier as Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Which has always been like, I feel like Justin Jefferson's kind of in a tier of his own when it comes to these fantasy dynasty wide receivers. Sorry, like when you look at Jefferson, he's gonna be tiered up with where Josh Allen, Mahomes. He's gonna be one of those top 4 or 5 guys. And with Chase, to me, I feel like he's just a back end first, probably second round pick. And if I could tier down on Jamar Chase and get a guy like Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua attached to a pick, so like a 2025 first or
whatever,
a 105, 106 around there, I would do that. I feel like you're going to get pretty similar production, especially from a guy like Nacua we saw in his rookie year this year, put up 1,400 yards, and I don't see why that would go down in year 2, 3, and beyond. So to me, I feel like Jamar Chase, he had a really nice rookie year. Obviously, he had 1,400 yards. So that was a big year for him. But since then, 1,046, and this year 1,200 yards, and he played 16 games. So he almost played every game, and 1,200 yards. Obviously a great season, but for the price that he's at, I feel like he could do better. I know Burrow was injured, and that's also another question mark. Burrow, he does miss a lot of time. In his rookie year, we saw Burrow get injured, and this year, so it's always going to be something that if Burrow misses time, is he really, really this reliant on Joe Burrow?
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know, but if I said, like I said earlier, if I can get one of these receivers that are just like ranked right now a tier below him, like Nacua, Garrett Wilson, and I could get a first attached to it, I'd be looking to do that and tier down from a guy like Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I don't hate that. It is controversial, but I think it has to be said. Anyways, keeping it in the wide receiving room for me, I got a guy in Chris Olave, who I think is an absolutely must sell right now. I mean, he's going, I think, back end second or middle of the second or third, and you're picking him ahead of guys like Brandon Ayuk, who I really, really like, Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Nico Collins. I'd even take a shot on Drake London this year, Michael Pittman, Tank Dell, Zay Flowers. Like, I'm sorry, I'd have him ranked below all these guys. Yes, he's got the name. Yes, he was drafted high. However, what has he done in his time? This season played, I believe, all 17 games. Maybe missed 1 or 2. 87 catches, 1,123 yards, 5 touchdowns. The TD's numbers not there. And considering how injury-prone this New Orleans team is, you would consider his production to be a lot higher. It's just not there. He has these spike weeks. He has some weeks where he catches like 3 balls and other weeks where he catches 10. He's just too unpredictable for me. And if you're able to trade him, I'm looking at some trade databases here, package him with a piece to get a Puka Nacua or CD, basically that upgrade at wide receiver, I would definitely do it. I would even package Chris Olave in a first if you can get a guy like CD Amon-Ra. Don't hesitate. Do that trade every day of the week.
I agree with that.
And, yeah, I would try to improve a wide receiver. I don't hate him, but I do think his value is pretty high right now considering where he's going on the big board and what you can probably get for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like he shouldn't really be ranked ahead of guys like Nico Collins, Devontae Smith. I feel like he's kind of in that territory too. I don't know why he's actually that high.
I'd take Michael Pittman over him, to be honest with you.
I don't know. Because of the age, I'd probably still take Olave, but Pittman did have a really underrated year this year.
Yeah.
And yeah, my next guy is going to be the tight end 4, TJ Hockenson. He's obviously coming off a huge major injury, an ACL and MCL tear.
Yeah.
At 26 years old. He's obviously not like super old, but I don't know, that's kind of an injury I don't really want to be attached to a guy like that. I'd try and trade down. He is ranked ahead of guys like Dalton Kincaid, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Travis Kelce, David Njoku, George Kittle, all kind of fully healthy. He's probably at the same range as those guys, and I feel like with the injury that kind of brings him down. Like, nothing against him. Obviously, he had probably the best year of his career this year. When Kirk Cousins was healthy, he was producing. He had 960 yards this year. Almost, he would have reached 1,000 yards if he didn't get injured. And if Kirk Cousins didn't get injured, who would have? If they were both healthy the whole year, who knows what he would have done?
Super Bowl.
I don't know. Probably not. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is the type of guy you kind of got a deal right now. As his value is still pretty high because he's coming off a good year. Just with that injury, I just don't really want to have him because who knows what it's going to look like. If you look at guys you could trade for him, TJ Hockenson in a third for Trey McBride, that's a deal I'd 100% do instantly. Yeah. If I can get up into a rising star like Trey McBride, I would do that any day. What else do we got here? TJ Hockenson for Mark Andrews straight up. This is one where I got to debate it. I feel like they're pretty similar, but I feel like I'd go for Mark Andrews as his injury that he's coming back from wasn't as serious as Hawkinson's. And we've seen Mark Andrews be a tight end 1, tight end 2 guy.
Yeah.
What else do we got here? TJ Hockenson for Josh Downs in a first. I feel like Josh Downs is the type of guy that is going to have a breakout year this year. So I don't even hate that. If you can get a first plus Josh Downs, I would easily do that. TJ Hockenson for the 108. I feel like this is pretty close. But I might pull the trigger on this. I'd kind of have to think about it, but I definitely would maybe do that. Hockenson for Addison and I would do Hockenson for Addison straight up. So if you could do that,
damn.
I would do that. There's a lot of good deals here I'm seeing on Fantasy Code that are being made. So if you have TJ Hockenson on your Dynasty team, I would 100% try and deal him and see what you can get from him.
God damn. Anyways, my boy just got destroyed. Moving on to sticking in tight end here. I got, again, Mark Andrews, who I think is a sell at the moment. He's coming off an ankle injury that left him out for the season, obviously. He wasn't too good. But he's had now a few injuries over his career that have kept him out. I know he had a shoulder thing. He dealt with a groin thing back in the day. And I just don't like the injury history. Seeing where he's getting drafted, 6th, 7th round. You got guys like David Njoku, Evan Ingram, Luke Musgrave under him. I'd even take a shot on Pat Freiermuth, maybe. And looking at the calculator here for Mark Andrews, there was some trades that I was really, really liking. If you can flip Mark Andrews for a middle-of-the-pack first round pick, I'd definitely consider it. And then there was another one. If you can package Mark Andrews here, I've seen a lot of Nico Collins. So if you can somehow package Andrews and like a Tajay Spears type of player for Nico Collins here, this is the trade. Christian Watson, Tajay Spears, and Mark Andrews for McBride and Collins. I would do that 1,000%. Obviously, you're adding 3 pieces, but the uncertainty in Green Bay at the receiving room, I like that a lot. Basically, if you're able to package him with a depth piece, sort of like rotation or running back, and get an elite wide receiver, I would 1,000% do it, no hesitation. Even a top 3 overall pick, I would consider it straight up. Even a middle of the pack first, I'd probably do. And yeah, I'm seeing here Brock Purdy, Mark Andrews for CJ Stroud. That's just crazy. And yeah, Mark Andrews is going. He's fishing you the first. He's fishing you some decent receivers, obviously with a little bit of a package, but do it. I wouldn't hesitate.
Yeah, I don't hate packaging him and trying to tier up into other guys because he is getting up there in age now.
Yeah.
My guy next up is the RB9, Kenneth Walker. He's a guy that since he came out, I've never been the biggest fan of Kenneth Walker just because he doesn't really catch passes, and I feel like he's very touchdown reliant. Like a guy like Kenneth Walker, if he's not getting a touchdown, he's not really going to score you many points. So he's a guy I've always I've never been a fan of him. He's being ranked ahead of guys like James Cook, Rashad White, Isaiah Pacheco, even Tajay Spears. I feel like now that Derrick Henry's not there, I feel like I'd prefer them over him. So if you could get a guy like James Cook, and you probably won't be able to get James Cook in a first rounder, obviously. But if I can get James Cook and a guy on a depth piece, because we know in these dynasty leagues there's a ton of flex spots that you're gonna fill up. So I always like getting as much depth as I can. So if I can tear down from a Kenneth Walker and get a James Cook or shot, I say tear down. I don't even think it's a tear down to me. I feel like in value it is, but I think James Cook and Rashad White are just straight up better. So if I could get those guys and something attached to them, I would 100% do that. And Kenneth Walker is a guy I would try and deal. He is young still, so maybe eventually he does start catching passes. But I feel like even in college he was never really a big pass catcher. So this is just the guy that he is. And yeah, plus with Zach Charbonnet, obviously didn't have too much of an impact this year, but he was drafted in the 2nd round. So eventually there must have been a plan for drafting this guy in the 2nd round that he could take away work from Kenneth Walker, especially in the passing game. So if I had Kenneth Walker on my team, he'd be a guy I'd be looking to move right now.
Yeah, don't hate that. I kind of
actually looking at trades you could make with him. Like I said earlier, Kenneth Walker for Jordan Addison, I'd be taking that any day. Obviously, you're always going to value the wide receivers higher than the running backs, so especially Addison's 22. He's going into his 2nd year. That's a deal I would make. Another 2nd-year receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba for Kenneth Walker. 2 guys on the same team. I would take JSN here. I know he had a quiet year 1, but I feel like Lockett's going to start being phased out soon enough. Yeah. And with now that they had a coaching change, a lot of people are expecting a breakout from JSN. So if I could do that, I would take JSN. Kenneth Walker for Tank Dell. Again, I'd take Tank Dell here pretty easily. Kenneth Walker and T. Higgins for Brock Purdy. I feel like this is a tough one because with T. Higgins in there, but if you could do Kenneth Walker for Brock Purdy straight up, I would take Brock Purdy. We know the quarterbacks are going to be more valuable. Kenneth Walker and Jahan Dotson for Devin Achane. I would do that. I would take Achane over them because I feel like Dotson's kind of a... this is a different topic, but for Dotson, I feel like it's kind of a make or break year again for him. So he's a guy I don't mind really attaching him to Kenneth Walker if I can get to Achane, who I feel like is like one of the fantasy beasts that can have like a 50-point week.
Yeah.
It won't happen often, obviously, but he has huge spike weeks. And then, yeah, so those are deals I would make, and I'd be trying to deal Kenneth Walker if I can.
No, for sure. Don't hate that one. Moving on to my last guy I got here. I got Travis Kelce, tight end. Obviously, we know who Kelce is. Former 3-time Super Bowl champ. But man's a beast. Look, he's had an excellent career. However, he is 34 years of age, going on 35. That ain't good in Dynasty. You got to get rid of him. Plus, look at his 2023 regular season. The way it started was good. But after the bye week, he just dipped. And he hadn't caught a game over 100 receiving yards after the bye week. Wasn't looking great. Obviously, playoffs come around. It's a different Kelce. He had a little bit of rest, I guess. I don't know. But regular season-wise, I don't think he has the longevity to go all 17 weeks. We saw him miss a few weeks here this season, which is not like him. Usually, he's an Iron Man. He's there every single week. And obviously, I'd try to move him. Considering he is 34, 35 years of age, going ahead of guys like David Njoku, again, I'd do Njoku for Kelce. Evan Ingram, I wouldn't hesitate. Pat Freiermuth, I'd maybe consider once again. And then looking at what he's trading for, there was one trade that really stuck out to me here. Travis Kelce for Terry McLaurin, TJ Hockenson in a first.
Yeah,
that's a no-brainer, but I don't think that's ever going to happen, obviously. But if you can package a guy like Kelce and Higgins, maybe, and you can get a first, Hopkins and Pat Freiermuth, I don't hate that. I think that's a pretty good trade. Obviously, don't want to move Higgins, but you know what? You're getting a first, you're getting Pat. Don't hate that. If you can package Kelce and a decent sort of average wide receiver for a first, I'd probably do that. I'd take the first. And here I'm seeing he's going for Matthew Stafford in a third. That's probably something I'd avoid. Deontay Johnson and Travis Kelce for Deshaun Watson, I definitely would not do that. But when you're packaging him with guys like, I don't know, T. Higgins and middle of the pack receivers, get a first, I don't hate that. I think that's something I would do. And if you can trade him straight up 1-for-1 for one of those lower ranked tight ends on the big board, like an Njoku, Ingram, I would definitely do that. Wouldn't question it. Even if you have to add in a second, I would probably do that. And just try to get rid of Kelce. He's getting up there in age.
Yeah, on David Njoku, I feel like he's a guy that's super undervalued because he had a big second half of the year last year.
He is.
We obviously did our buy lows last week, so if you didn't watch that, go check it out. It's on our channel. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Njoku, you had mentioned Evan Ingram. That was a good pull. I like that one. But yeah, so these are our guys. These are the 8 sell highs that we have for you this week. It's some big names. But this is why they're ranked so high. They are big names, and if you could sell some of these guys, we would suggest it. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.